Hi, and welcome to the second episode of the Watched on Work podcast, a monthly podcast where I talk about what I've been working on over the last month and what I plan to do in the next month. This month, my family and I suffered through strep throat for the 5th time this year. Yes, we are planning to go see ENT. So many of my grand plans that I had didn't really work out. The big thing that I want to make sure that I get started on in September is a set of 4 children's sweaters for 4 small cousins, all under the age of 5. I spent a decent amount of my time sick or taking care of sick children. So while I didn't get to be quite as aggressive as I wanted to be with my crafting in September, I was still able to get a decent amount of stuff done and share it with you. So I'm excited to walk you through what I did get done and kind of reframe my plans for the rest of the fall. In addition, I realized that 2 videos a week really isn't sustainable for me or for my family or for the lifestyle that I currently have with working full time. So I am going to cut back to 1 video a week. I'll be publishing videos on Mondays. And then you might get some bonus content every once in a while on Thursdays. But for now, planning to publish videos once a week on Mondays. I did a significant amount of sewing this month and fought with my knitting machine a little bit. Much less machine knitting than I did in August. So you'll see a lot of the projects that I worked on did involve my sewing machine. I also returned to my Knitters Guild after several COVID years. I was very excited and super happy to get to attend a Knitters Guild meeting in person. Our guest speaker talked about his variety of flocks of sheep, was really interesting, and was very anti-superwash wool, which was interesting, considering the fact that I use a ton of superwash wool, but I don't know, it was just like a very classic Knitters Guild meeting. People were excited to be back in person. And while the Guild did have in-person meetings last year, I did not attend because I was extremely pregnant and did not want to attend in-person events like that last year. So it was great to be back in person. The other thing that I did this month that was new to me was I joined the machine knit community. They open up signups, I think like generally 2 or 3 times a year. I will say I haven't done that much with it yet because I have been so focused on sewing this month. But it seems like a really great place to have resources and a variety of people available to talk to about different things when it comes to machine knitting. I don't find that there are great communities of machine knitters out there. There's a Discord, and then there's a small subreddit, and there are a couple of Facebook groups, but it's different than what I get out of like Ravelry or a very active Discord or just generally the community that has sprung up around quilting or knitting. So those were the big events that I participated in the month of September. So let's get into the projects. So this one requires a little bit of backstory. So if you are a baby wearer, if you have ever bought carriers, or if you've bought carriers really within the last 5 years, you've probably heard about Happy Baby carriers. Happy Baby carriers are like the it thing, I would say. They're really great compact carriers that are very comfortable to wear. They're super easy to wear. They're easy to just throw in a bag because they compress down really small. They're often made out of 100% linen, but they will occasionally take fabrics from groups like Rifle Paper Company and create carriers with those. They do a drop method, and I find that extremely aggravating because their stuff sells out in like literally 15 seconds. And usually I don't like to reward companies for having business models like that. But I just love their product so much. So they had a collab with Rifle Paper Company, and they created carriers in Rifle Paper Company's Meadow fabric. So I was lucky enough to score a carrier in the last drop, so where they released Meadow. So this is the carrier. If you're not into baby wearing, this probably doesn't, you're like, why does this matter? So what matters about it is, even though I'm not buying these carriers to just like resell, I bought one carrier for myself, they actually have pretty good resale value. This is my last kid, I know that, so I don't really want to like ruin my carrier or let it get all moldy. So I had picked up some fabric that matches the carrier to make what is called a suck pad. So suck pads go on the straps of the carrier to protect them. My child in particular does really like to gnaw on things right now. He's definitely at that age. So I made a pair of suck pads in matching fabric. They are reversible. So this is Rifle Paper Company Meadow, and on the reverse it is just an art gallery fabric. I can include the specific information in the description. So I never made one of these before. I just kind of like my other Happy Baby carrier, I just kind of let him chew because it's older and it's not kind of a fancy carrier. But I wanted to kind of protect this one a little bit, not necessarily for the resale value, but because I can tell that I'm already gonna have to like start washing my other carrier pretty frequently, and I don't want it to get messed up in the wash. So if I can just throw these in the wash, that's a lot better. So this is what it looks like on. It's pretty seamless. I'm quite happy with them. The pattern is from Fabric Ninja. And like I mentioned, this is a Rifle Paper Company print. This is a linen and cotton canvas, and it is exactly the same as whatever Happy Baby used when they constructed these, and then they have a linen fabric on the inside. So I bought enough to make several of these for some friends, so I'll probably keep making a little bit of the suck pads, but I really liked the Fabric Ninja pattern, and I would definitely recommend it if you're looking to make suck pads for your own carriers. The second thing I finished was another sewing project, and that was my Fifth Avenue belt bag by Sally Tomato. This was a kit that I got at the Wisconsin Quilt Show, and I saw this fabric at the quilt show, and I was like, I don't care what the pattern is, I must have it. So this was my first time really sewing a bag. Certainly something as structured as this. I've definitely made like zipper pouches before and like really simple things. Nothing with this level of webbing on it or anything like that. I'm very pleased with how this turned out. I have worn it several times since I made it, and I actually got complimented on it today, and somebody asked me if I had an Etsy, which I do not. I basically am a selfish sewer. I sew for myself, but I like the biggest compliment in the world to me is that something that I made by hand looks store-bought. That is the level that I like to approach. I understand why other people might not feel that way, but for me, when I make something, if somebody can't tell that it's handmade, I think I've done a really good job. So I was pleasantly surprised and felt very complimented when the person asked me today if I had an Etsy. But I love this bag. It is super cute, and just the fabric is really wonderful. I don't know what this fabric is because the kit did not include the selvage, so I'm curious as to if anybody could identify this print. I also have gotten a lot of compliments on the print. I did make an entire video about my process for making this bag, including what was in the kit from Sally Tomato, so if you'd like to check that out, I will link it here. Moving on to my in-progress stuff that I worked on but didn't finish in the month of September. The first thing that I have is my Lopi. I had mentioned originally in my videos I was planning to hand stitch the colorwork part of the neck and then to steek and then hand knit a ribbed button band. So I haven't made it super far. Even just getting this put together onto my my needles was kind of a pain. And I did all of the seaming, so that was something that I did finish. There are just a ton of, it's just like a massive amount of ends in here that I've really been trying to avoid thinking about because I don't like weaving in ends. And then I can also tell already that my gauge on the colorwork is different than the gauge that I was using for the machine. It's a little bit tighter, and I'm not quite sure what it is because I blocked my swatches. I'm wondering if it'll loosen out when I block it. I assume that it will. I'm really not that far into this. I'm maybe 10 rows into the 50 rows of the colorwork. It will get shorter as it goes because it's neck, so it's gonna get less. But that's where I'm at with my Lopi. It's going fine. I wouldn't say it's going great, but it is progressing, and it didn't sit the entire month, which is the most important thing in my mind. I would like to really progress on this. I feel like this happens to me a decent amount as I start getting distracted by other things, and I'm really trying to be a more monogamous knitter and to have fewer works in progress. But it's hard when I have other crafts that I do too, because I feel like, oh, starting a new sewing thing isn't the same as not working on my knitting, even though it is. So this is where my Lopi's at. Hopefully I'll be making significant progress by the time that I talk about it next. And my next in progress project are my Afterthought heel socks. So these are my first of the adult size ones, and I'm really enjoying working on them now. Oh, I think I dropped a stitch. Let me catch that. Okay, I'll have to fix that. I am enjoying working on them now, and like once I got started I was happy with them, but it took me 4 days to knit the 2 tubes for this project. So this tube and the waste yarn. So I was doing fine on the waste yarn, which is fully knit in the round on my standard gauge machine. And then when I started working with this Regia yarn, that's when I started having trouble. And it was literally days. My carriage was so jammed it wouldn't move. And I would get maybe like 5 rows in to the main yarn, and I would get so jammed that I would have to either cut the yarn or take the carriage off and kind of like walk it back and try again. What I realized was that this yarn is quite sticky. So the Regia yarn, I believe, is, if it's not 100% wool, it is 75% wool and 25% nylon, but it has like a pretty rustic feel for socks. And I had wound it from the skein into a center pole ball, and my center pole ball was sticking to itself. So when it's sticking to itself, the tension in the tensioning mast gets completely screwed up. So I was really like, it was as if you were holding on tight to the yarn as it's trying to feed into the carriage. So I really wasn't able to move the carriage at all. Now, thankfully, somebody suggested on the Machine Knitting Discord that I could try rewinding the yarn from my center pole ball into a second center pole ball, and this made all of the difference in the world. I definitely still had to be careful about the tension, but to knit these 2 tubes, so that much, once I got going, it took less than a half an hour. Oh my gosh, it's so efficient and so effective. So as you can see, I've already put the toes on this guy, and I'm working on the cuff, and then I'll have to put in the heel, and then I'll be doing the same thing for this one. So I have some toddler socks that are done, and then I'm gonna call it like half of a sock for the adult size. And then I did put away my knitting machine after I finished these tubes, and I'm hoping I'll be able to pull it out. I'm planning to make several pairs of these for Christmas for this year, so I need to wind and rewind my other skeins of this yarn so that I'm ready to go. My last in progress project this month is my sweater weather quilt along. So I've made several videos about this that I will link, and I'm really enjoying how everything is turning out, and also the process of sewing very, very different blocks every week. The blocks are very large. They're 20.5 inches or 20.25 inches for some reason on some of my blocks, but they're very large. They come together quite quickly. It takes me maybe 2 days to put 2 of them together, so maybe 1 a day. And I have been batching them, so I do 2 of them at a time, just so that I'm cutting at the same time and working with the fabric at the same time. I'm really loving how this is turning out. The 5th block was released, so I'm recording this on Saturday the 30th, so the 5th block was released yesterday. I have a little bit of work travel coming up, so I am going to hold off on working until the 6th block is released. And then the couple of remaining blocks actually look significantly more complicated. There is one with very small curves in it that is making me a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited to continue working on it. The fabric that I'm using for my sweater weather quilt along is all Kona cotton, and this is a design by the 9 Patch Quilt Collective. As for hibernating projects, I did not work on my Twinkle Lights quilt at all. That I had finished the quilt top, but need to actually do the quilting. I just have other projects that I've been working on. And then the Amba O'Brien pattern that I showed off last month, I didn't touch. So I definitely got very into the bag. My fanny pack was just something that like very much caught my interest, as well as the quilt along, so really didn't have as much time to do that, and I was also taking care of sick children, so I can't really blame myself too hard for that. So both of those projects were hibernating. I'm okay with that, but I really do want to take some time to do a finisher frog, if not in October, definitely in November, and really hold myself accountable to finishing projects and not letting them add up over and over and over again. So that's a little bit of a teaser of what I'm planning for October. So my October plans are still fairly fluid, but it is definitely time to kick my booty into gear for Christmas gifts. I have some ornaments that I have obligations for because I have been making ornaments in a series for people. So I would like to at least start on them in October. They do require a little bit of prep work, and they turn out lovely, but they are very complicated. So I make ornaments by Crafts on Etsy. She also has an Instagram and a blog, and they are intricate and require a lot of steps and pieces and parts, and they look beautiful when they're completed, but they are not easy. I would say that they are fairly time consuming. So I actually have one from last year that I didn't finish that I would like to finish first. So that's probably top of my mind. I had mentioned last month that I was planning to work on 4 sweaters for some cousins. So that is definitely on my list as well. I think I've picked my pattern. I just need to confirm sizing, write it out, and because it's going to be machine knit my test swatch and block that to make sure that I have a reasonable gauge. Then I will continue working on my sweater weather quilt along. I think that there will be one block that goes into November. And I actually signed up for a couple of additional quilt alongs. There's a spooky season quilt along that I signed up for that is going to be releasing blocks 1 a day at the beginning of October, and they will be available through Halloween. And then there is a winter solstice quilt along that I signed up for that I believe will start becoming available in October. Now, am I actually going to do these quilt alongs? Probably not. Neither one has shown a sample of what the quilt will look like at the end, and I'm just not interested in making something that I'm not that certain about. It's part of the reason why I don't participate in mystery knit-alongs. But because the patterns are only going to be available for a relatively short amount of time, I am interested in making sure that I get those patterns. I know that the reason that these pattern makers do this is to get you to sign up for their email list so that you'll actually pay for their patterns, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I only like one block, it's worth it to me to get a little bit of spam for that. And you can always unsubscribe if you're not interested. So those 2 things I have signed up for. I really do want to work on my Lopi. I really need to work on my Lopi. And I want to finish my socks so that I can move on to the next thing. So I would say in order of priority, what I'm looking at is sweater weather quilt along, Lopi, socks, cousin sweaters, and then hopefully right after that is going to be Christmas ornaments in October. I hope that you have enjoyed getting to hear a little bit about what I'm working on and what I have planned for the next month, and I will see you next Monday. Thanks.